IXL section S10, slope-intercept form, write an equation from a table. Before we begin going over examples from today's IXL, let's do a quick review. Slope-intercept form is written like this: y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and y and the letter b is the y-intercept. Okay, and the slope, remember that the slope measures, if you have a line on a graph here, the slope measures how steep the inclination of the line is, and the y-intercept is the point where the line crosses the y-axis. All right, so this is the y-intercept. But for all the answers today, which I'll go over in a second, you're going to be writing your answers in slope-intercept form, but using function notation, which means everything's gonna look exactly like it does here, except instead of writing the letter y, you're gonna write f of x. You're gonna write f parentheses x, and the way you pronounce that is, or the way you read that is f of x. F of x equals mx plus b. This is how you're gonna write all your answers today. If you forget and write y equals mx plus b, even if everything's right, it's going to mark it wrong. I know because I was just doing some examples and I forgot and wrote it with the letter y and it marked it wrong for me. Antes de mirar algunos ejemplos de del IXL que tenemos para hoy, vamos a repasar bien rápido. La forma slope-intercept es cuando se escribe la ecuación de una línea en esta forma: y es igual a mx más b, donde la m representa el slope. El slope es la medida de la inclinación de una línea, y el y-intercept es el punto donde la línea cruza el axis de y. Ahora, todas las respuestas para la pregunta que van a ver hoy se tienen que escribir en notación de funciones, que es lo siguiente. Cuando se usa esta notación, luce igualito que lo que tenemos escrito aquí. La única diferencia es que en lugar de escribir y, tienen que escribir f paréntesis x, que en inglés se lee f of x y en español f de x. F de x. Si se le olvidan y escriben la y, lo van a coger mal, aunque lo demás esté escrito correctamente. And also remember this formula. This formula is used to calculate the slope when you have a table of numbers. Today, even though we've already had IXLs using this, I'm going to show you that today you could do it really quickly. You don't have to spend so much time calculating this. I'll show you why in a second. But I'm just reminding you that this is the slope to get, this is the formula to get the slope of a line. Okay, esta es la fórmula para calcular el slope de una línea, el pendiente de una línea, que ya lo hemos usado en diferentes IXLs. En un momento le voy a enseñar que para el IXL de hoy no se tiene que usar esto mucho. Y le voy a explicar por qué. All right, let's look at our first example. Okay, so before we even look at this, well, let's look at the instructions. It says, write the linear equation that gives the rule for this table. Write your answer as an equation with f of x first, followed by an equals sign. I think it should be an equal sign, not equals, but whatever. That's how they wrote it. So your answer has to be in this form: f of x equals a number x plus the y-intercept. All right? La respuesta tiene que estar en esta forma. Dice aquí que tenemos que escribir una ecuación lineal que nos da la regla para esta tabla. Y tenemos que escribir la ecuación con f de x primero, seguido por el signo de igual. Así que tiene que empezar la respuesta así. Alright, so look. The first thing I'm going to do is find the slope. Alright, lo primero que voy a hacer es encontrar el slope. Now, this is the formula. However, I've already done the entire IXL, and I'm going to show you why you don't really need to use the formula. I'll show you the shortcut, okay? First, let me do it the long way real quick. All right, the long way is I label this x1, y1, and this x2, y2. You could do this with any pair that you want, all right? La manera, lo voy primero explicar la manera correcta usando la fórmula y después le voy a explicar cómo se puede hacer más rápido por hoy. Okay, so anyways, when you substitute the numbers, you're going to have this on the top, 26 minus 25, and on the bottom 5 minus 4. In this case, you're going to get 1 over 1, so the slope is 1. En este caso, el slope es 1. In all the IXLs that you're going to see today, okay, if you look at the x coordinates, they're all going to be going up by 1. So basically, you could just calculate the slope by looking at the y coordinates for today, all right? They should have mixed it up more. I kind of don't like that they made it so simple. It makes it easier to do, but you guys might get confused in the future and think that you don't have to look at this. But for today, I'll go over this again when we have a table where it's going up by a different number than 1. All right, but for today, let's just use this example. So my answer is going to look like this. My slope is 1, which when it's 1, you don't write it. But just for the sake of this explanation, I'm going to leave the 1 for now. El slope es 1, y cuando es 1 no se escribe, pero para la explicación lo voy a dejar para poder explicar lo demás. Okay, now look, now we got to find the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, what you're going to do is this. Get any pair that's here, any x and y coordinate that's here. Let me say that better. Get any ordered pair that's here, like either 4 with the 25 or 5 with the 26 or 6 with the 27, whichever one you want, and substitute them for x and y. The easiest one to use is almost always going to be the first one because it's almost always going to be the smallest numbers that's in the table. All right, so usually the first pair is the easiest one to use. So I'm going to substitute the 4 for the x and the 25 for y. Now, there's no y here, but f of x means the same thing as y. All right, so 4 times 1, let me just say that in Spanish real quick. Estoy sustituyendo el 4 para x y el 25 para y. Aquí no hay ninguna y, pero f de x quiere decir lo mismo que y. Así que donde está f de x, voy a sustituir 25. Que lo dice arriba también. Los números de esta columna son f de x. Y los de esta son x. Ahora tengo que resolver para encontrar el valor del y-intercept, que es la letra B. All right, so 1 times 4 is 4. So now I got this. Now the only thing left to do is move the 4 to the left by subtracting 4 from both sides. So B equals 21. The y-intercept is 21. El y-intercept es 21. So my answer is going to be f of x equals, actually, let me just write here. The slope was 1, and the y-intercept is 21. That's my answer, but I'm not going to write this 1 because your answer should always be simplified, okay? Aquí está la respuesta que me enseña el slope y el y-intercept, pero la respuesta siempre se tiene que escribir lo más simplificado posible, así que el 1 no se escribe. So my answer is going to be this, f of x equals x plus 21. That's my answer. All right, let's look at another one. Okay, in this one, first thing I'm going to do again is find the slope. Now look, I'm not going to write the formula for every example that I do, but for the first few I will, just so that you could see what I'm trying to tell you. All right? When I substitute these values, let's just use the first two. Okay, cuando sustituyo esos valores, voy a usar estos valores aquí. Y no voy a escribir esta fórmula para cada problema, solamente para los primeros ejemplos, para que se den cuenta de lo que quiero decir. Okay? First of all, let's look at the x coordinates. I already mentioned this, I'll say it again. For all the examples today, they're all going up by 1. When that's the case, my number on the bottom is always going to be a 1. All right, so I'm going to end up disregarding it. You'll see in a second, okay? On the top, I'm going to get 12 minus 6, which is 6. So my slope is going to be 6. This is what I mean, that because the bottom numbers are always going to equal 1 for today, I could kind of disregard looking at this column and just get the slope by looking at this column. How much is it going up or down by? In this case, since all the numbers are going up by 6, the slope is going to be 6. En este caso, como todos los números están subiendo, todos los números para f de x están subiendo por 6, ese va a ser mi slope. Porque ya le estoy diciendo que en el IXL de hoy, todos los valores de x en la tabla están subiendo por 1. Así que siempre te van a dar por hoy un 1 abajo. Así que no es necesario por hoy calcular el número de abajo porque ya le estoy diciendo que siempre va a ser 1. Así que se puede hacer más rápido simplemente mirando por cuánto está subiendo o bajando en la columna de f de x. Otra vez, eso es solamente por hoy porque no solamente está subiendo por 1 en todos los problemas para los valores de x. Alright, so now we know that the slope is 6. Now I gotta find the y-intercept, alright? Ya sabemos que el slope es 6, me falta encontrar el y-intercept. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to substitute. Sorry, but I have too much information there. The way I'm going to do it is substitute these values. You could do it with any ordered pair here, but I'm going to use these values. I'm going to substitute them for x and f of x. So that 6 goes where f of x is, and the x goes where, or the 1 goes where x is. Okay? Estoy sustituyendo para x y f de x. Lo puedo hacer con cualquier par que está aquí, pero voy a usar los números más chiquitos porque eso va a ser lo más simple, lo más fácil para hacerlo. Alright, so in this case, I'm going to get 6 equals 6 plus b. Now I move this 6 to the left by subtracting it, and I get 0. So the y-intercept is 0. My value for b is 0, so the y-intercept is 0. El y-intercept es 0, o el valor que cogí para b es 0. So my answer so far looks like this. F of x equals 6x plus 0. However, like I said, you always write your answers as simplified as possible. Since the y-intercept is 0, I'm not going to write that in my answer. Okay, siempre se escribe la respuesta lo más simplificado posible. Así que no voy a escribir más 0, porque cuando le sumo 0 a un número me da la misma cosa. Así que esto sería la respuesta simplificada. All right. Next problem. Okay, so like I said before, now let me try to go over this the faster way. The x's are going up by 1, so I could just get my slope by looking at this. In this case, the f of x is going up by 1, so the slope is going to be positive 1, which I'll write just for now. Otra vez, los valores de x están subiendo por 1, así que el slope lo puedo coger simplemente mirando por cuánto está subiendo o bajando el valor de f de x. Como está subiendo por 1, el slope va a ser 1. Okay, now to solve for b, let's substitute 3 and 12. Para resolver para b, voy a sustituir el 3 y el 12. So I'm going to put the 12 for f of x and the 3 for x. So 12 equals 3 plus b. Now subtract 3 from both sides, and you get 9. b equals 9. The y-intercept is 9, el y-intercept es 9. So my answer is going to be f of x equals x plus 9. The slope is positive 1, so you leave it invisible. You don't write it. All right, next example. Here, the slope is going to be 11. You see how you could do the slope quickly? Whenever you see that this is going up by 1, I just look at how much is this going up by. It's going up by 11. I could do this like this because it's a linear equation. For other types of equations, these little techniques won't work, okay? But for this one, it works. So I'm showing you how you could do it fast. Okay, otra vez, puedo encontrar el slope fijándome solamente aquí. Lo puedo hacer de esta manera solamente porque esto es una ecuación lineal. Si sería otro tipo de ecuación que van a ver en el futuro, esto lo que estoy haciendo no trabaja para otras ecuaciones, pero para la que tienen hoy sí trabaja. Así que como están subiendo por 11, mi slope va a ser 11. Ahora voy a hacer la misma cosa, sustituir el 1 y el 11 para encontrar qué valor tiene b. All right, I'm going to substitute 11 and 1 to find what value is b. So when I do that, I mean, you could do this mental math. For those of you that are really good at math or are in honors, try to do some of these mental math. And you'll start seeing these little techniques that I'm showing you. All right, so b equals 0, the y-intercept is 0. So my answer is going to be f of x equals 11x plus 0, and I don't write the plus 0. Okay, el más 0 otra vez no se escribe. All right, let's look at this one now. A lot of these are similar. All right, so again, the slope, the numbers are going up by 1. So the slope is positive 1. So now to solve for b, I'm going to substitute for f of x2 and for x4. And that's going to give me for b a value of negative 2. Okay, el valor para b es negativo 2. So my answer is going to be f of x equals the 1x, but I don't write the 1, minus 2. And by the way, you could always check if your answer is right by substituting and seeing if this equation is true. Substituting, like for example, let's say I substitute this value right here for x and f of x. It should make the equation true. Siempre pueden chequear si la respuesta lo tienen bien sustituyendo un par de esta tabla para x y f de x y chequeando si lo que sale es verdadero o no es verdadero. So for example, if I put the 7 where x is, I get 7 minus 2, and the 5 where f of x is, and you could see that that is a true statement. 5 equals 7 minus 2. Okay, esto me dio una ecuación que es verdadero. 5 es igual a 7 menos 2. Así que como esto es verdadero, esta ecuación está correcta. That tells me that my equation is correct. Okay, so remember that all you guys that send me screenshots asking me if this is correct, you could check whether it's correct or not with the system I just told you, with the technique I just told you. All right, so here we can see that it's going up by 2. Está aumentando por 2. So my slope is going to be 2x. I'm sorry, it's going to be 2. So now to solve for b, I'm going to substitute. F of x is 4 and x is 2. And when I do that, I'm going to get b equals 0. So my answer is going to be f of x equals 2x. Okay, I think I put too many of these where it's just going up by 1, which is getting annoying. But okay, I guess the IXL gave me a lot like these. So, all right, so the slope here is going to be 1 because the f of x is going up by 1. So now to solve for b, I'm going to substitute this ordered pair right here. Voy a sustituir este par para encontrar el valor de b, para encontrar el Y-Intercept. So that's going to be 47 equals 5 plus b. Now subtract 5 from both sides, and you're going to get b equals 42. So your answer is going to be f of x equals x plus 42. Okay, now look at this one. All right, the x values are going up by 1, just like always for today. Okay, now look at the f of x values. To get the slope, let me ask you a question. Okay, are the numbers going up or are the numbers going down here? Are they going up or down? Imagine a number line. Here's the number 0. Here's the number 34. Is negative 39 to the right or to the left? It's to the left. So is negative 44. So that means that the numbers are going down. They're getting smaller. The numbers are getting smaller. They're getting smaller by 5. Okay? So that means that the slope is going to be negative 5, because what's happening here is you're subtracting 5 from each number. Negative 34 minus 5 is negative 39. Negative 39 minus 5 is negative 44. Negative 44 minus 5. Look at the number line. When I subtract 5, you always go to the left 5 numbers. So when I subtract 5 from this number, I go over here 5 numbers, then 5 numbers, then 5 numbers. So because the slope is going down by 5, it's going to be negative 5. Okay, todos estos números están bajando por 5, no están subiendo, están bajando, como pueden ver en la línea numérica. Okay, si empiezo en negativo 34 y el próximo número es negativo 39, le estoy restando 5 a negativo 34. Siempre cuando se resta 5 se va a la izquierda 5 veces en la línea numérica y miren cómo van los números. Así que los números están bajando 5 por 5 cada vez. Le están restando por 5 cada vez. Por eso es que el slope es negativo 5. Si usan esta fórmula, le estoy tratando de enseñar cómo se puede hacer más rápido en el IXL que tenemos hoy. Siempre se puede usar esta fórmula, pero si lo usan usando estos números van a coger el mismo resultado que yo lo estoy enseñando. ¿Ok? Le estoy enseñando cómo lo pueden hacer un poco más rápido si se dan cuenta de lo que está pasando. Pero si usan esa fórmula van a coger la misma respuesta que yo estoy escribiendo. Alright, so if you use this formula, you're going to get the same answer I'm writing, negative 5. For today, because I see how the tables are working, I'm trying to show you how you could do it quicker and not spend so much time and do so much work. The more of these little techniques that you realize, the better you're going to get at math. I mean, those of us, and I'm including students, right? Because there are students that are really good at math, whether they're freshmen or sophomore or middle schoolers, whatever. The people that are good at math are the people that notice these relationships, these patterns that exist between the numbers. All right, you should notice them after you do like 2 or 3 problems. You start to notice the relationship and the patterns that exist. And the people that don't notice those patterns are usually the students that have not memorized their timetables. And I mean memorized it like that you know it very quickly, as well as not memorized their addition tables. By addition tables, I mean knowing like really fast what 5 plus 7 is, okay, or 18 plus 6, right? Those are things that you should know fast. If you need to bust out your fingers and start counting your fingers, that's not good. That means you don't know them well and you don't see the patterns. And so if you're someone that struggles with math, I'm telling you, that's the issue. I've been teaching for like 15 years. And I taught middle school for a bunch of years. I'm telling you, that's always the issue with students that struggle with math. Or that's almost always the issue. It's not, the issue is almost always that you struggle with adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing. You did not learn that well. And until you fix that, you're always going to struggle with math. Sorry to tell you. All right, moving on. Okay, so in this one, if you look at the f of x, they're all going up by 4. So my slope is going to be 4, okay? Okay, now to solve for the y-intercept, I'm going to substitute 17 for f of x and 1 for x. That's going to give me 17 equals 4 plus b. So now I'm just going to subtract 4 from both sides, and that's going to give me 13. So f of x is going to equal 4x plus 13. Here, again, they're going up by 1, so the slope is going to be 1. El slope va a ser 1 en este ejemplo. Okay, so to solve for the y-intercept, I'm going to plug in 5 and 2. So I'm going to put the 2 where f of x is and the 5 where x is. Now when I subtract 5 from both sides, I'm going to get b equals negative 3. So f of x equals x minus 3. All right, next example. Okay, here again, notice that the numbers are going down. They're going down by 10. So that means you're subtracting 10 each time. You're subtracting 10 from each number. Fíjense que están restando 10 de cada número. Because you're going like this. You're going to the left each time. Minus 10, minus 10, minus 10. Restar 10 cada vez. So my slope is going to be negative 10. All right, now let me substitute this ordered pair right here. And I'm going to have negative 10 equals negative 10 times 1 plus b, which is going to give me negative 10 equals negative 10 plus b. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides, and that's going to tell me that b equals 0. So my answer is going to be f of x equals negative 10x. Okay, so here the x's are going up by 1 like as usual for today. And all of these, the f of x they're all going down by 4. They're all going down by 4. So my slope is going to be negative 4x. Now to solve for b, I'm going to substitute 25 for f of x and 3 for x. So that's going to give me 25 equals negative 12 plus b. Now I'm going to solve for b by moving negative 12 to the left, by adding 12 to both sides. So b equals 37. So my answer is going to be f of x equals negative 4x plus 37. Let me just see how many, I should have put numbers on this, but I didn't. Let me see how many examples we have left here. All right, I probably put too many examples here. I'm going to do a couple more, and then I'm going to, no, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to do a couple more, but let me jump to some more interesting examples, because at this point they're all looking pretty much the same. Let me do this one just since it has a 0 there, just in case. All right, so the slope is going to be 1. And for the y-intercept, I'm going to substitute 2 and 0. So I'm going to get 0 equals 1 times 2 plus b. So 0 equals 2 plus b. Let's subtract 2 from both sides, and I'm going to get negative 2. So my answer is going to be f of x equals x minus 2. This one I'm going to skip. It's just like all the other ones that we've seen. Skip this one as well. Whatever. Let me just do one more that has a 0 there. All right. So my slope is 1. So f of x equals 1x plus b. Now let me substitute the first pair there. So 0 equals 1 times 4 plus b. So 0 equals 4 plus b. So b equals negative 4. So f of x is going to equal x minus 4. Let's look at this one since it has negatives. It's going down by 16 every time. Okay, so the slope is going to be negative 16. All right, so now let's plug in the first pair here. So f of x is negative 30. So I'm going to have negative 16 times 2 plus b. Negative 30 equals negative 32 plus b. So now just move negative 32 to the left by adding 32. So you're going to have b equals 2. So f of x equals negative 16x plus 2. Let's skip this one. It's pretty much like the other ones. Let's do another one with negative numbers. This one's going down by 10. They're all going down by 10. So the slope is going to be negative 10. Now let's plug in the 2 and the negative 32. When I do that, I'm going to have negative 32 equals negative 20 plus b. Now let's move negative 20 to the left by adding it. So b is going to equal negative 12. So my answer is going to be f of x equals negative 10x minus 12. Skip this one, skip this one, skip this one, skip this one. All right, let me talk about this one real quick. All right. This one, I'm going to show you another. This one is worth paying attention to. I mean, because what I'm trying to say is that it's different from the ones we've seen so far. They're all worth paying attention to. But this one has something that I want to point out, okay? En este le quiero enseñar algo. All right, so first of all, let's do the same thing we were doing. So the slope, they're all going down by 5. So the slope is going to be negative 5. Negative 5x plus b. Okay, now look, what I want to show you on this one is this. The y-intercept, okay? Try to memorize this definition. I'm pretty sure I've said it. Well, I'm not positive if I've said it this year, but it's when I taught Algebra 1, I would use it all the time, and in geometry I use it as well. The y-intercept is what is y when x equals 0. What value is y when x equals 0? All right, so if you look at the table, they actually show you. This is the first one in today's example where x equals 0. So what is y when x equals 0? In this case, it's negative 35. So I could just look at it and get the answer from there. My y-intercept is right there. When x is 0, the y-intercept is negative 35, and that's my answer. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you right now that if we do it the same way we've been doing it, which is like this is what I had. I had at the top, f of x equals negative 5x plus b. To solve for b, if I take this first pair, 0 and negative 35, and substitute them, all right, when f of x is negative 35, x is 0. If I plug that in, 0 times negative 5 is 0. So that cancels out, and you're just going to have b equals negative 35. So if you're looking for the y-intercept, and it says on the table that x equals 0, the y-intercept is that number. Whatever number is there when x equals 0. Whatever number is here when x equals 0 in the f of x column, okay? So that's, whenever you see that, that's a quick way you could do those, a quicker way. You need to recognize things like that because they come up a lot on exams and in homeworks and stuff. Let me just repeat all that in Spanish. El y-intercept es el valor que tiene x cuando... ¿Tú sabes qué? Déjame decir algo más en inglés antes que se me olvide. Guys, one more thing in English before I forget. All right? I just want to explain it one more way. I had said earlier today that the y-intercept is whatever number is here when the line crosses the y-axis. Okay? Whatever number is here when the line crosses the y-axis. Let's pretend that the number that's here, let me make something up real quick. Let's pretend that the number that's there is 8. Right? So the y. No, you know what? No, let me use the example we're using right now. But to do that, let me draw a different picture. All right, here's the graph, and here's negative 35 is down here. So that's the y-intercept, and in this case, since the slope is negative, the line is going down. Okay, but what I want to point out is the following. I'm going to ask you a question. Think in your mind. What is the coordinate of this point right here? The x and the y coordinate of that point. We know the y coordinate is negative 35. What's the x coordinate? The x coordinate is 0. Because look where it lines up with on the x-axis. 0. So the coordinates for this point are 0, negative 35. Which goes back to my explanation. The y-intercept is whatever y is when x equals 0. All right, whatever y is when x equals 0. The more ways that you understand this, the more it'll make sense, and the more you'll be able to grasp everything I'm trying to tell you to look at. All right, let me go back to my Spanish explanation. All right, okay, en español. Okay, el y-intercept es el valor que tiene y cuando x es igual a 0. Así que lo que estaba explicando es que este es el primer ejemplo que miramos hoy, donde en la tabla te está enseñando cuando x es igual a 0, qué valor tiene y. Cuando x es 0, en esta ecuación, el valor que tiene y, que es lo mismo que f de x, sería negativo 35. Cuando eso te sale en la tabla, pueden simplemente poner este número, negativo 35, aquí para el y-intercept. Si no están seguros, pueden hacerlo con el mismo sistema que he usado en esta lección completa, que sería sustituir. Si uno sustituye, por ejemplo, trabaja con cada par que está aquí, pero si uno coge el primer par de X e Y y lo sustituyen en esta ecuación, el negativo 35 para f de X y el 0 para X, cuando lo resuelven van a ver que el número que te va a dar es el número que está aquí. Y la otra explicación que le estoy, o la otra manera de entender esto que le estoy dando es, ok, por ejemplo, en esta ecuación, si el Y-Intercept es negativo 35 y el slope es negativo 5, el slope es negativo, eso quiere decir que la línea está yendo para abajo, de izquierda a derecha. Pero si uno mira qué sería los coordinados de este punto del Y-Intercept, el Y-Intercept siempre va a tener un coordinado de 0, porque el Y-Intercept es el punto donde la línea cruza el axis de Y. Y cualquier punto que está encima del axis de Y, cualquier punto que uno escoge, el coordinado de X siempre va a ser 0 si queda encima del axis de Y. Así que por eso le estoy diciendo que si en la tabla le dice que X es igual a 0 y están buscando el Y-Intercept, simplemente pueden coger el número que está al lado de X igual a 0. Eso siempre va a ser el Y-Intercept. Okay, I probably overdid it with that explanation and went too far, but just to make sure everybody understands. All right, should I do this one? Let me just do another one with negative numbers, just in case anybody needs help with negative numbers here. All right, so these are all going down by negative 21. You're subtracting 21 each time. Just to make sure, yeah. Okay, so my slope is going to be f of x equals negative 21x plus b. Now when I substitute this first pair for x and f of x, I'm going to get negative 15 equals negative 21 times 2 plus b. And that's going to give me negative 42 plus b. Now I'm going to move the negative 42 to the left by adding 42 to both sides. All right, so b is going to equal, this is the same as 42 minus 15. 42 minus 15. 42 minus 10 is 32, and 32 minus 5 more is 27. So b equals 27. So f of x is going to equal negative 21x plus 27. I'm going to skip this one. All right, here's another one where, look, they're showing you that when x is 0, what y is. So this is the y-intercept. Just from looking at the table, you could pick it out right away. Okay, este es otro ejemplo donde en la tabla te están dando el y-intercept, porque te está enseñando que cuando x es 0, f de x es 19 o y es 19. Así que este número es el y-intercept. So I'm going to get the slope in a second, but I'm just showing you that I already have this. Okay, ya tenemos el y-intercept. Lo que me falta es encontrar el slope. All right, so since you're adding 7 each time, you're adding 7. So my slope is 7. So my answer is going to be f of x equals 7x plus 19. Okay, ahí está la respuesta. All right, guys, that concludes this lesson. All right, so once again, the assignment is in IXL. It is IXL section S10, slope-intercept form, write an equation from a table. It's due by 6 a.m. of the next day that you have my class. And remember, you're required to get to 100 points. Everybody's required to get to 100 points on my IXLs. If you get less than 100, I'll put a 0 until you complete the assignment and get 100. Okay? Esta es la tarea, IXL sección S10. Lo tienen que entregar antes de las 6 de la mañana el próximo día que tienen mi clase. Y recuerden que tienen que llegar hasta 100 puntos en mis tareas de IXL. Si no llegan a 100, le voy a poner un 0 hasta que terminen la tarea, hasta que lleguen a 100 en la tarea y me manden un mensaje dejándome saber que llegaron hasta 100. All right, guys, that's it for today. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next class.